Let's go further north, across the border into Scotland, a land which has both a turbulent and romantic history. Here, the character of the landscape changes, and even the Scottish haystack is different in size and shape. In spite of its smallness, Scotland provides many contrasts in scenery, and its people possessing qualities, amongst which is a fervent love of their homeland, whose praises they are always ready to sing in verse and ballad. Many Scotsmen have been destined to change the face of the world. Telford, the builder of bridges, Watts, who produced the steam engine, while Symington adapted it to ships, and more recently Baird, the inventor of television. Yet in spite of their skill and industry, these men have seldom bent their energies towards developing their native country. Striking east brings us to the Melrose country, which was immortalized by the novels of Sir Walter Scott. But all Scotland is not pastoral, and Edinburgh, the capital, is considered one of the finest cities within the empire. Here, many fine old buildings mingle with the new, and Princes Street, the main thoroughfare, is perhaps one of the most famous meeting places in the world. All along the coast are numerous little fishing villages, and here the inhabitants earn their livelihood from the sea. Every variety of fish is caught, according to the season, and much of it is cured before it is sent inland. In most villages, fishing is still a family affair, each owning their boat and working together. Herring fishing is left to the larger ports of Aberdeen and Fraserburgh, which are the headquarters of the drifter fleets. During the season, salmon is plentiful and provides a lucrative living for the villagers. Sometimes fishing is done from the shore by means of sweep nets, but here stake nets have been set a little offshore, and the brawny fishermen soon row their boats to the fishing grounds. Nets which are set overnight are now well filled, and the silver hoard pours into the boat, a catch that would gladden the heart of any fisherman, silver salmon, the prize of the sea. The nets are left to catch other poor fish, salmon for preference, while the fishermen row back to shore with their haul. Good news travels fast, and the youngster and his donkey hurry down to the beach to help with the unloading. These fish will fetch a good price in the local market, and the fishermen are well pleased with the morning's work. Even the donkey isn't such an ass that he doesn't know a good salmon when he sees one, and he wonders if they will ever stop piling them into his panniers. In such peaceful surroundings, it's hard to visualize the stormy history of Scotland. It was not until 1707 that hostilities with England ceased and the two countries became allied. But the battles between the clans continued. The nobles built large castles fortified by natural moats and kept large bodies of retainers who fought on both lawful and unlawful occasions. Many of these castles still remain, grim reminder of the turbulent past. Some of them are little more than crumbling ruins, but if those massive stone walls could tell the story, they would speak of the feuds between the Campbells and the MacDonalds, which influenced the trend of Scottish life. They would tell, too, of the cattle raids and bloodsheds which stain the pages of Scottish history. Today, these monuments of another age have become part of the Scottish scene, whilst the memories they recall have been mellowed by time. Going north, we arrive at the Caledonian Canal, which travels 60 miles to the west coast, making it possible for ships to cross from one side of the country to the other. The idea of this canal was first conceived by James Watt, and construction was completed about 140 years ago. The scheme was made possible by the union of lochs with artificial waterways. To keep the water level consistent throughout the course, no less than 28 lochs had to be built, each providing sufficient space for vessels up to 600 tons, an enterprising venture which is a credit to Scottish engineering. At the western end of the canal is Inverness, which has become known as the capital of the Highlands and stands on the River Ness, which divides Scotland. But let us leave the canal and wander through the rugged Highlands. Here there is little sign of life save for the sturdy Highland cattle roaming among the mountains. A strong trait of the Scottish character is their nostalgic love for the beauties of their own country, which is typically expressed by the words of Coming Through the Rye.
In a body meet a body coming through the rye. In a body kiss a body need a body cry. Milk a lassie has a laddie on they say aye. Yea, they the lads they smile at me when coming through the rye.
In such a typical Scottish setting, one can almost hear the drones of the bagpipes. For Highlands has been developed classical pipe music. Typical, too, is the reel, for here the old customs and folklore still survive, and at the gatherings of the clans, such exhilarating dances as the Eightsome Reel are still performed with zest to the stirring notes of the pipes and the rolls of the drums. The children are taught the steps which their forefathers danced, for the national pride of their long tradition still burns in the heart of every true Scot. In many parts of the Highlands, life remains almost primitive, the inhabitants being engaged in sheep and cattle farming. In the villages, the old crafts still exist, and this old gentleman has spent a lifetime in making shepherd's crooks, and although his work may not have the polish of the machine, it bears the stamp of fine craftsmanship. A little further on, we come to the Glen of Glenfinnan. It was here that Bonnie Prince Charlie gathered together an army of clansmen in 1745 and marched on Edinburgh, which he captured. But he never realized his ambition of gaining the English throne. Leaving the glen behind us, we journey on and meet up once again with the Caledonian Canal, forming a natural foreground to the mountains beyond, while to the fishermen they have an added attraction. In wooded glens, waterfalls are to be found, and the water, as it falls over the granite boulders, shimmers in the dappled sunlight. Now we must return southward, but first pause to gaze upon Loch Lomond, Scotland's most famous loch, which has renown in song and literature and remains the mecca of tourists. On a sunny day, every viewpoint provides a perfect picture which only nature could paint, the cool waters lapping gently on the shore as they have done for time immemorial. Yet this tranquil scene has been the stage for many stirring incidents in Scottish history. It's said that in the far-off days of the Norsemen, Viking raiders dragged their galleys overland to sail on Lomond, plundering and sacking the villages on the shores. Turning to another page of history, the 18th century raided farms around the lake. but it is inevitable that they should hear the strains of the famous song as they admire the sea.
You take the high road, and I'll take the low road. I'll be in Scotland afore ye, and my true love will never meet again on the bonny banks of Loch Lomond.
Across the Firth of Clyde is the Isle of Bute, with Rothasay as its capital. The town is similar to many other seaside resorts, but has a fine bay which has become known as Sweet Rothasay Bay, haven for yachtsmen. The island is 15 miles long and a mere 3.5 across. From high ground it's possible to view the sea surrounding the isle, and on a clear day the mountains on the mainland. But perhaps the best way to see the island is from the local steamer, which serves many of the villages on Bute and the mainland, which are connected by road. Sightseers cluster on the decks to catch a glimpse of the magnificent scenery. The narrow waterways formed by Bute and the mainland are known as the Canals and are unique, for in no other part of the British Isles can this be found. As we glide along the calm waters watching the ever-changing panorama, we reflect that the scene is not unlike the Norwegian fjords, and it's said that in olden times this region was inhabited by Norsemen. Here the water is affected by both tides and current and is extremely deep. But even in gales, the waters remain comparatively smooth, being sheltered by land on both sides. Further south, we catch a glimpse of the granite peaks of Arran. Throughout the island, stone rings and other evidence of prehistoric occupation are still to be seen, for Arran was the stepping stone to Ireland. It was also a stronghold of the Norwegians, who named many of the villages. Today, Arran is little more than a farming community and tourist resort, for it has many charming glens and some of the most stately mountains to be found in Scotland. We have travelled from the Lowlands to the Highlands and revelled in the glories of the Scottish scenery. As our journey to the north comes to a close, we reflect upon the fine traditions bred in Scotland. The skill and enterprise of the Scot has done much to build up our empire, and we owe a debt of gratitude and the hand of good fellowship to these sturdy northerners.